Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and happy Premiere Thursday again. Getting towards Halloween, so I thought we'd do some scary stories. This one's The Thing in the Basement. Watch out for the thing in the basement, Billy's Uncle Hank used to say. He thought it was funny and he'd smile when he told Billy about it. Been down there a long time, since before I bought this house, he'd say. People told me about it, told me not to buy the house, but I didn't listen. I know it's there though. I can feel its presence, like a cold, clammy feeling. It makes your skin crawl. You know something's watching you, just waiting to pounce. Billy didn't like his uncle. He was strange, had too many rules, and every rule had a punishment. The worst punishment was the basement. If you ever did something really bad, Uncle said, you would have to go downstairs where the thing lived. The basement was called a Michigan basement. It was unfinished, with a bare earth floor and walls. There was a workbench with tool scatters all around, and clutter everywhere. Old broken furniture, ancient toys, old magazines mouldering in stacks, a bare light bulb in the ceiling. It smelt damp and musty, and there were strange noises that came from the shadows. His uncle came down here to do his woodworking, and he had an assortment of saws, lathes and chisels. There was even a big industrial table saw that could cut thick planks of wood. When Billy's mother told him she was going away on vacation with his father and that he'd have to stay with his uncle for a week, he pleaded not to go. Now, Billy, his mother said, you're being unreasonable. We can't afford to hire a babysitter for you for the week, and we have no other close relatives living nearby. We're not really friendly with any of our neighbours. You know I don't believe in getting chummy with neighbours, so Uncle Hank is the only option we have. I don't know why you keep saying you don't like your Uncle Hank. Why, he's my brother. We're so close we could almost be twins. The first day, Billy broke a rule. His uncle had a strict rule about not wasting anything, and Billy accidentally tipped a litre bottle of soda over on the kitchen table, and all the soda poured out. His uncle got red in the face, smiled and said, well, Billy, I think for that infraction you need to spend some time in the basement. Billy begged him not to go, but his uncle didn't listen. He grabbed Billy by the collar and marched him down the old wooden steps, then marched back up himself, closed the big wooden door and bolted it shut. And then he turned out the light. It was a good thing the house was set back from the road and there were no neighbours close by, or they would have heard Billy's screams. Billy's uncle seemed not to notice the screams or pounding on the door or any of the other noises that came from the basement. The next morning he came down to breakfast whistling a cheery tune. When he was finished eating his cereal, he said, well, Billy, I think you've had enough punishment for one night. Let's see how you're doing. When Billy's mother got back from her trip and came to pick him up, she rang the doorbell over and over, but nobody answered. She tried the front door handle and found that the door was unlocked. She made her way through the house calling, Billy, Hank, where are you? In the kitchen, she saw a cereal box on the sideboard and a bowl and spoon in the sink. The door to the basement was open. She went downstairs slowly, calling, Billy, Hank, are you there? It was dark in the basement, and it took several moments before her eyes adjusted. There was something at the far end of the room by the table saw. The thing in the basement moved towards her. Mama, it said. Next up, this won't hurt a bit. Mr. Huxley, it looks like I have to fill one of those black teeth today, the dentist said, looking up from his chart. Jerry Huxley squirmed in the dentist's chair. He had never liked visits to the dentist, not since he was a little child, and it hadn't gotten easier now that he was in his 40s. Sure, Doc, he said. Just make sure you numb me first, okay? Of course, Mr. Huxley, the dentist said. He was a small man with a smooth, professional manner and brilliant white teeth. Jerry talked a lot when he was nervous, and he chattered on now as the dentist got the needle ready. You know, I had an uncle once who swore his dentist put radio receivers in his fillings, and that the government was trying to control his mind that way, he said. He was crazy, of course. Imagine thinking something like that. The dentist chuckled. I'm afraid our technology hasn't progressed to that point, he said. Now, just relax. This won't hurt a bit. Jerry flinched while the dentist inserted the needle, then slowly relaxed as he took it out. Yeah, Uncle Joe was crazy, he said. Delusional. He had all sorts of theories about what they were trying to do to him. Poor guy ended up in a mental institution. He said he couldn't stop hearing voices in his head. Is that so? The dentist asked. He stepped on a pedal and opened a stainless steel trash can. Then he threw the empty cartridge from the hypodermic needle into it. What type of work did he do? Oh, he led a simple life, never married, worked nights as a security guard. He spent his days in a library, though, surfing the internet or poring over old books. He had all sorts of theories about UFOs, government conspiracies, cover-ups, you name it. He was a conspiracy nut, I guess you'd say. I know the type, the dentist said. The ones who think the government is behind everything bad that happens. Yeah, that's it. He came up with the craziest ideas. You could say that again. My uncle certainly had some nutty ideas. And he had boxes of papers in his apartment, file cabinets full of research that he said he proved was right. Pictures even. Really, the dentist said. Whatever became of it? Oh, it's all in my basement. I cleaned out his apartment when he had to go to the mental institution, and I just put it in the basement. He begged me not to throw any of it away, and I just couldn't bring myself to go against his wishes, even though I knew he was crazy. He's been dead for a few years now, though, and I made a resolution to clear it out. I'm sure I'll get a chuckle reading through that stuff. How's your mouth feeling? Is it numb yet? Jerry probed around with his tongue. Yup, can't feel a thing. Good, I'll get to work then. The dentist moved efficiently about his work, humming a pleasant tune. He had an annoying habit of talking while Jerry's mouth was full, though, and Jerry couldn't answer. It certainly is a pity that these people get crazy ideas about the government, the dentist said. Why, the government is just trying to protect us. It's an evil world out there. They're just trying to do the best for us. His voice was serene, although there was a vein in his neck that throbbed as he spoke. Jerry wanted to make a joke about how that's exactly what Uncle Joe said we should watch out for, the attitude that the government knows best. But of course he couldn't, because the dentist was probing around the back of his mouth with his instruments. In less time than Jerry expected, the dentist was finished. All done, he said. I'm very happy with the work I did. You can rinse and then be on your way. That was fast, Doc, said Jerry, rubbing his mouth. And it doesn't hurt at all. I used a very powerful anaesthetic, the dentist said. You may feel a bit woozy for a few hours, but that's to be expected. Everything will be fine in the end. Jerry shook the dentist's hand, happy that it was over. In minutes he was outside, whistling a happy tune as he looked for his car in the parking lot. It was Don't Worry, Be Happy. It occurred to him that he hadn't heard that song in a while. Now I won't be able to get it out of my head for days, he thought. That's what always happens with catchy tunes like that. Inside, the dentist stepped into a room at the back of the office suite and closed the door. He sat down at the desk, reached in his mouth and pulled his false teeth out, then put them on the desk. He reached in a drawer of the desk and took out a black official-looking cell phone. He punched in a few numbers, then a few more numbers when he heard the automated voice prompt. Then a live voice came on the line. Yes, the voice said. The dentist leaned his head back, opened his mouth wide, and made gurgling noises from deep within his throat. Speak English, please, the voice said. Sorry, Eminence, the dentist said. His voice sounded liquid like water sloshing. I did an implant today. Oh? On a 43-year-old white male named Jerry Huxley. I did his uncle 20 years ago. His name was Joe. You have him on record. The name is familiar. I thought he was deleted. Yes, he left a paper trail though. The nephew has all his records. I see. I'll notify security. Good work. Thank you. The dentist grinned, his toothless maw opening wide. I do my best to fight disease when I see it. And lastly, sins of the flesh. Flesh? You mean to say people in the future expose their flesh? Darcy said. They are nearly naked on the beach. I saw it with my own eyes. Professor Smythe pursed his lips disapprovingly. Such immorality. They must have no sense of decency. Quite. It made me long for the example of our dear Queen Victoria, who is a pillar of modesty, which is why I've decided to hide my time machine. The future is an immoral time, not fit for anyone of our era to see. Yes, but in the interest of science, perhaps a trip or two. No, those sights are not meant for men's eyes. I will lock up my invention, and that is final. As you wish. Later, though, Darcy snuck into the carriage house, took the tarpaulin off the machine and started it. He told himself he was doing it for science. He couldn't remember which year his friend had told him he visited. Matter. He simply set it for several hundred years in the future. The machine whirled and clanked, its wheels and rotors spinning into life. They spun faster and faster, and the air seemed to shimmer and blur. Then everything stopped, and Darcy saw sand and heard the nearby surf. What luck! He was on a beach, and was able to see... Something bit into his shoulder, and he was jerked out of his seat and up into the air. He found himself dangling 10 feet up, staring into the eyepiece of a shiny metallic thing that seemed to be studying him. There was a whirring sound coming from the region behind its eyes. Another sharp claw sliced through his clothing, and in seconds he was naked. The thing examined him more closely, touching his flesh with another appendage that had long, cold fingers. "What is it?" a voice from below said. "What have you found, Rex?" Darcy looked down and saw a squat black thing looking up at him from a group of other squat black things. They looked like enormous beetles. Somehow they could talk, although he didn't know where their voices were coming from. He was suddenly lowered almost to the ground, where the beetle things could see him with their large insect eyes. Their antennae swayed back and forth, and the sun reflected off their smooth black shells. The first voice said, "Interesting case. Most of them don't try to camouflage themselves anymore. Their mating rituals require nakedness." "Disgusting," the rest said in chorus. "Get it away." Darcy wanted to cover himself, but he could not. Then he was raised high in the air and flung hard to the ground. He broke several bones and was in an agony of pain. The last thing he heard before being crushed to death by the droid's 10-ton foot, his insides splattered across the beach, was, "Sorry that you all had to see such obscenity on our beach. We've eradicated most of them, but there's still a few stragglers." The end. Don't forget to like and subscribe and press the wee bell notification. And a huge big thank you to all my subscribers, patrons and members. See you next week. Bye bye.